at the Science Museum. I am Head of Space and delighted to welcome to the stage Harshbir Sangha, MBE, who is the Missions and Capabilities Director at the UK Space Agency. Now, space is something that captures everybody's imagination, and India's ongoing Chandrayaan and Gaganyaan missions, they really continue to assert their leadership in space and space exploration. And of course, the UK Space Agency and UK is actively ramping up their investments. But that said, perhaps the UK-India space collaboration has yet to take off. So we're going to explore a little bit about how perhaps that can get going. So Harshbir, I wondered if I start. We have a UK national space strategy. How does that align with India's space ambitions? And where do you see the greatest opportunity for policy alignment and innovation there?
Yeah, no, thank you, Libby, and thank you for having me over here at this amazing venue. And just to obviously, for complete transparency, Libby and I used to work together. You're alumni of the space agency, so it's great to be here talking about space with you, but equally great to be here talking about the India-UK relationship in space. So as far as our national space strategy is concerned, and of course, obviously, the Indians' ambition in space, I think they're quite well aligned in many ways, because we've got so much history and culture that aligns us together when it comes to space technology. So when it comes to Earth observation, and I was on in India a few weeks ago, we were discussing the disaster charter, in how the space technology can help enable, I guess, obviously, save people's lives, either it's flooding or natural disasters that exist. So as far as our space strategy is concerned, it's very focused on how do we make space services better for people, and how do we make our life better here on Earth using space services. And exactly the same thing is right at the top of the agenda when it comes to space agenda in India. So they're quite active into deep space exploration, and you talk about Gaganyaan and the Chandrayaan missions. We, obviously, as you being the ex-head of space exploration at the UK Space Agency, our obviously ambitions for exploration are quite well aligned. But I guess, obviously, in a way, the synergy really comes together. It's through the economic growth lens. So we are seeing, obviously, the UK government space as an endeavor, not just to make a life better here on Earth, but equally to support the economic growth agenda for this government. And the minister was just here talking about it. And India is seeing exactly the same way. For many years, Israel, most of the development that happened within the closed doors behind Israel. But the Indian space economy is really opening up as we speak. So with over 5,000 private entities, they're expected to be in place by 2030. We have got about 1,800 organizations over here. So, the synergies do align pretty well from economic growth to science exploration.
So there's lots of synergies there, but especially from my experience as well, I look at what the European Space Agency is doing. They're starting to work with ISRO, but it's baby steps. What forms of collaboration are there already there between ISRO and Space Agency, and where do you see it heading?
So, a number of, I think if I go back nearly 15 years when the UK Space Agency was formed, quite in the early days, we did sign an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding with the Indian Space Research Organization. So collaboration started very early on as we formed the agency at our end. But since then, we have had, obviously, very recently the free trade agreement with India, which obviously I can see the people who actually initiated right at the front over here. There are a number of different things that exist at a very high level from, relationship development perspective, and there is obviously a range of different legal documents that sit behind it. But from a relationship level, I think we have in some ways, we struggled to really form into a missions capabilities development relationship for a number of reasons. But we did do a mission together, which was a mission called Novasar, which was developed here in the UK, but then launched by India. And then we do have a collaboration as far as the data sharing agreement is concerned. And we are currently working through an international bilateral fund, which the agency set out last year, on a couple of small projects with Israel, which are looking at the research and development into how some of the technology we're collaboratively developing could enable the future missions in Earth observation in particularly, and also in space exploration. So there are different relationships at different levels that exist. But I guess the thing I'm really excited about is the business-to-business relationship with the private organizations in India doing more on space. And we do have a very rich heritage when it comes to either developing small satellites or obviously the skills and the technology we've developed over the number of years. And the missions like Chandrayaan 2, which was the precursor to Chandrayaan 3 that was successful in the end, it was actually, some of the technology was developed here in the UK. There was on the mission at the time. So I think real different opportunities at business-to-business level. But I guess in some ways where the relationship is working really well is in the R&D part at the moment. And here, being at the Science Museum, obviously, it's a real pleasure to say that the academic sector is really working very strongly. And we must learn from the academic sector and how we translate that to business, but equally then the government to government, i.e. us as an agency working with ISRO.
So there are some great successes indeed in research, as you said, but perhaps you've alluded to there is more to be done. So what do you see as some of the challenges that we have to overcome? Have you got any great ideas about how we can solve those?
Well, I think we do have great ideas. I'm pretty certain we all do in different ways. I guess, if I have to summarize in a couple of things, I think the first thing is actually having better understanding. When it comes to space, I think we need better engagement, better dialogue. We actually need to come down to the table as to organizations working, obviously, at a very senior government level to try and understand what kind of ecosystems we have and what kind of ecosystem we're trying to create. So I think it's just at a very high level, the understanding. And I guess the free trade agreement enables that to happen. And I can see a number of different groups, different boards being chaired at a very senior level, including with the minister who was just sat over here previously. We can use those mechanisms to enable the relationship to happen, to begin to understand the ecosystem and the synergies that we're trying to form. I guess we do have a challenge. The challenge has been, I think, a bit of a misunderstanding, if I can call it, in those terms, on some of the broader issues in could we export or import technologies or different technologies, which I think we're trying to overcome by having a better understanding. And I guess if we can somehow overcome the misunderstandings we have, whether obviously they're real or not, I think we can really open up the two markets for each other. And I'm really confident the FTA does provide us at least the runway to actually try and enable, hopefully, obviously, the next space mission together with India.
Yeah, it would be fantastic to see. And there's so many investment opportunities now in space as a growing area. I know it's something the UK leads in, and it would be great to see if we can make those collaborations across with India. Now, we're sitting here in the Science Museum. We are here about inspiring futures, and we know that space has a real ability to inspire people. We're looking ahead to the Axiom 4 flight, which is now due to launch on Sunday, which will see the Indian astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla launch alongside the European Space Agency's Slavoj Vineshki. So that will be great. But how more, that will inspire young scientists and engineers, but how more can we do, what more can we do in both countries to really make sure that we engage to drive this next wave of space innovation and collaboration so our two countries can keep working together?
Yeah, no, I think it's a real opportunity, if I'm being really honest. And again, obviously, from experience itself, I was at IIT, which is the Indian Institute of Technology in Mumbai last year. I spoke to thousands of students, as it turned out to be. And it just kind of the space just lends itself to the excitement that obviously people feel about it. But then there isn't a straight path into obviously that you can do a certain course and you can end up in space. So what we are trying to do here as part of the UK Space Agency, we have a number of programs which are education skills focused to try and work with our academic sector through the STEM agenda to try and obviously bring people to understand what kind of skills the space sector requires. And let me just be very honest over here. The space sector doesn't require just the engineers. It requires all sorts of skills. And quite frankly, if someone like me can work in a space sector, I'm pretty certain everyone else can. But equally, when it comes to India and the UK relationship, I think once we can overcome some of those kind of the broader issues that we have, I think just the talent, the skills that exist in both countries, I think we can bring them together through different mechanisms. There are mechanisms that does exist at the moment. But when it comes to space, I think we can try and focus on certain things we can work together, where we can either inspire the next generation through doing small satellite missions, something that UK has got strong heritage in, or actually set up some kind of, you talk about investment, some kind of investment portfolios that the young people can get behind. But I guess the first and foremost, and that's a collective challenge for all of us, sitting in this room and everywhere I go. I was at the IIT yesterday. Someone asked me exactly the same question, but not with the India dynamic to it. It was about how do we actually get people to understand what space offers? Because more often than not, people just think space is, and if I can just use those terms, which have been publicized well, that it is somehow obviously a rich person's play area. It's not. Space impacts everyone and everybody in our daily lives. In fact, I'm sure obviously every one of us in this room, including me, have used space tech multiple times during the day. And I think that's the message we must get to the people, which will hopefully obviously automatically inspire the next generation. So there are different ways we can obviously cut the cake, I guess.
space really is something we all rely on every single day. And I think that's true in every single country. And I suspect it is true in India, as I know it is here in the UK, that people don't appreciate fully how much the phone in our pocket is connected to space.
Absolutely.
And we would be absolutely lost without it. So it's really important that we do make sure that we have a future workforce to carry on doing those technologies. I think we've got time for just one more question. So I just wondered, were there any emerging technology areas beyond the missions that you see that might have the greatest potential for UK-India collaboration or indeed investment?
I think it's a great question. I think the satellite communications, if I'm being really honest, we do have, there's a company called OneWeb, which I'm sure obviously many have probably heard of. The UK government invested heavily into the company at the time to try and save the company. I've got a golden share. But the company is also, there's a heavy investment from the India side, the Bharti Telecommunications, into the company. So that's kind of a synergy that exists already in the market. And with the space technology pivoting towards low Earth orbit satellites, which is small satellites providing the same kind of a service as obviously a geostationary satellite would provide, and sorry for some of the technical terms, big satellite, small satellite in simple terms. The small satellites do provide the synergy and opportunity to do actually space, I guess, innovation faster, some of the collaboration faster. And I think if I have to kind of focus on one area, I think satellite communications could be the way forward to try and obviously bridge the two countries together when it comes to space. Because one of the things that satellite communications can do is it can provide broadband services, communication services in a hard-to-reach areas. And quite frankly, I think that's where, we do have obviously parts of the UK which are still not connected. And there are multiple regions within India which can actually benefit from high service connectivity. So I think there are opportunities in the satellite communications market just to kind of work on the existing foundations that exist.
I look forward to seeing those collaborations develop and seeing a great UK-India, Israel-UK Space Agency satellite communications mission in the coming years. That would be fantastic. We're running out of time here in this session, so I just want to say thank you so much, Harshbir, for coming along and sharing your thoughts today on that wonderful topic about space and how we can get the UK and India working together much more closely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.